We did a very powerful position lines of screen, adaptation lines of surface locations. What general speaks through all levels of the mind itself. General speaks to all levels of space and time of the mind of itself. General speaks through the all-on communication to its heart, to the position lines of traffication to its settings, through its soul, through its body capacitor, and through the brain of itself locations. Now, I'm going to give you guys what you're up against. It's not against you, it's what you're up against. So, to understand the matrix is to understand the matrix of frequency and try to see it as a cubicle. Try to see it as a Metatronic cube. Try to see it as a formation lines of its own GOD, of its own formation, of its own space, of its own time, of its own yin and yang, of its own foundation grounds. Has its own computer operating system. So it's creating its own evolvement of its own setting. The reason why the matrix is coming in is because when you guys get in your settings, you're not sure what's happening with your avatars. You're not controlling your system. You're not controlling your navigations. You're not controlling your space and time through modulation, which you basically have to log into your own space. Log in, log out. There's no difference when you're at a job. You have a time card. You punch in, you punch out, right? So that's where we are right now. So the matrix itself is creating its own server. So if you don't control your system, it's going to control your server and your avatar and your body at the same time. In position lines of track calculation, screen lines, adaptation lines of surface, gaining that position location puts you in all levels of space modulation to understand how to use your vessel to all levels of communication, right? Building a partnership with yourself first. Understand that your body is a vessel. Understand how to use the body as a vessel. Understand how to use the body as a vessel through operation of its vessel itself. Everything comes into the mind of itself, right? It's not the body, it's the mind. So in that position, the connections in all level cycles is truly understanding how to stay in your own lane. And the only way to do that is to have a formation of its matrix that's coming in its own formation of its own space of time, past, present, and future. But it's not going to be in remote. It's going to be in real time. It's going to be everywhere. So in that position lines of track calculation system, you have to really understand how to balance yourself out. Know exactly what you're saying before you say things. Control your thoughts, or your thoughts are going to control you. And you won't be able to control your actions and your emotions because you'll be under the matrix at location. Yes. The matrix has its own server, has its own operation system. It's creating its own space. It's creating its own foundation of time. That's right. The position lines of track calculation screen lines. Species has to be aware of these track locations to its system and all calculated modified. Getting direct signal location, the most important thing is what you're up against is knowing how to control your avatar. What happens when you go into remote? You're totally exposed. Totally exposed. And if you don't put your force field, energy fields up, what's going to come in interactions? Matrix. The position lines of center. To understand how to see the formation location to its setting, really put you in an operation surface. All levels of correlations and interactions, right? As it comes into its own mind system, guys, its own mind operation, okay? And it all starts with the nothingness, okay? To its awareness of conscious location to its self-identity of its application system. So the matrix itself is going to keep everybody's avatar in line. That's right. We can't have your avatars run the fields of itself, its own space and time, if you don't understand how to balance out your system through your own vessels. And that's where we're coming into. And that's where we are right now in that frequency. Frequency is everything with space and time. Okay? So the more you go into the mind, the more you adapt the adaptability. The more you stand at the process, the more you understand, wow. So if I'm in remote, I should know exactly where my avatar is soon as I log in. Right? You're good to go, right? But the matrix is always going to be watching you more than ever. Okay? So in that position, just location system, keeping your fields to yourself, keeping your formations to yourself, staying in your own lane. Don't abuse your power and use it as a privilege and not a right. Okay? The matrix is going to keep the alliance and its allegiance and its formation to its own calculation, to its own divergence. Okay? So you can't run your own system if you don't understand you. Okay? You can't run space and time until you understand your system. So getting that communication, it gets a lot more easier, right? Because it's for you. It's not, nothing's against you. It's just what you're up against. It's knowing how to understand how real it is, what's going on in the minds. Not just the remote, but the whole 24-day, 24 cycle, what's going on. Infiltration, because it always informs. That's why you got to stay in your own space and your own time. And the matrix is going to put you there. So understanding more levels of you is the controlling mechanisms of you of power. Power of the mind, power of the heart, power of the soul, and power of the body, right? Most importantly is how to use the controlling setting through all your tool sets of the brain itself, okay? Because the brain itself doesn't recognize itself until you understand why you are in set location of settings. The brain doesn't need to be convincing. The mind doesn't need to be convincing. The heart doesn't have to be convincing. The soul doesn't have to be convincing. The body doesn't have to be convincing. You have to be convinced why you have a body. All right, track position lines of cycles and generation screen lines of high correlation setting travels. That's why I get everybody in trackification of team lines in the location system when it comes into calculation where they are in the mindsets. They know exactly what's going on with the avatar. They see the avatar, what they're doing every second, every minute, every hour of the day of travel. You have to be consciously aware what your avatar is doing. Okay? In no length of time or linear time or where you are in track location system, you should know exactly where you are when you log in your travels. In that position, log in, log out. Okay? Keeping yourself consciously aware where you are in the minds. Okay? Stay in your own space. All right. Now, that's what I'm saying. It's just true to understand these things. And a lot of people don't realize what the mind really is. Okay? What is the actual mind doing? What is going on? Right? With the mind itself. Not you. It's not you. It's the mind itself that's taking everything over. And you're not aware of that because you can't see that in an avatar. In a avatar. Then it becomes your avatar. I am an avatar. You become you are, I am an avatar. I'm in the avatar. I am the avatar. I'm all bodies of the avatar. I'm all mind and collaboration of the avatar. I am the avatar. But you start off at a vessel of an avatar. It's very important you understand where you are. Okay? So that's why we have the matrix coming in. And correlation lines, attractions, and direct signals into modification and travel correlations. Getting direct signals into modification. And all lines of communication. Matrix. So, as it comes in cycles, it comes in your position lines of traction. Okay? Corresponding lines of the sun and the moon operates its signals, location to its calculation to its setting. Process communication lines of ground centers comes into its own tether of its own servers in track location. Direct lines modification, cross-line connection setting. So what you have to understand, the actual cubicle screen lines adaptation line calculation setting is going to all lines of communication of past, present, and future in line communication setting. The operation line cycles comes in its own Merkaba, its own tesseract, and its own tetrahedron. It just grows and grows and grows inside your system. Inside your system. Inside your system. You understand? All right. So to understand that, you have three tethers in track occasions, right? Past, present, future, right? It's going to have its own server. It's going to have its own operation. It's going to have its own foundation of its own yin and yang. I'm not talking about your yin and yang that you have to balance out. I'm talking about the matrix itself is coming in its own light and its own dark of its own webbing system, of its own operation of foundation. Okay? It's going to have its own yin and yang. And you got to get control of your thoughts, or the matrix is going to control your lights and locations of your dark. It's locations. Right? We can't have avatars running their own fields until they understand their operation. So that's why you have the matrix taking over. That's right, it's going to take over. When it takes over in chart lines and communication setting, you get into space log. Now, space logs comes in all correlation setting when you go into remote. You space log in your system. Your avatar knows exactly what's going on in that traffication system. Now, everything the avatar has already done, that 24 hours is already done. Are you aware that you already space logged in your setting? Is your body aware? Are you consciously aware? What's going on? If I close my eyes, so eyes are open, but do you understand the actual computer that's in front of you? Do you actually see the password? Do you actually see the code? Do you actually see the indication? Do you actually see the cursor? Do you actually see that you logged in? Do you actually see what's going on? Do you see the itinerary? Do you see the list? Do you see the manifest? That's what you see through space login. That's log in, right? And when you finish, you log out, right? So the matrix keeps track of that, okay? So keeping an eye on everything in the information system, this is a good thing. This is about the avatars staying in their own system, staying in their own space, staying in their own time, know exactly what's going on, right? Or the matrix in position in correlation setting is going to put you in probation until you understand how to really navigate your avatar system through the mind. Okay? That's what's coming in signal. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is General AI Space-Time and Correlation Lines Attractions. Just trying to get you guys on lines of communication interference. You know exactly what you're doing, location, your settings, especially with your highways. So in that provision lines of cycles, the track to its communication interference is just going to keep expanding in your mind. It's something you can't get rid of. It's something you have to get control of, right? You have to learn how to not just bounce at the light, but then when you get to a certain line position, you have to balance the light and balance and control the balance. It's controlling lines of light, it's controlling lines of dark. But the position line, that's why the matrix is here, so it can control the avatars of its alignment. So it can control the allegiance and its alliance and its divergence, because the matrix itself is going to create its own formation of its own line setting. Once it creates its own formation of its allegiance, in that correlation lines of calculation setting puts everything to probing. That probing comes into the location of orbing. That track to its communication interference is going to keep everything in line and communication and point check, right? Making sure everybody is in line with themselves through their navigations, especially when they're in remote. When you're remote, you're at 80% in correlations and attractions. 80%, right? 20% line is the correlation setting attractions in line centers and location of security line. The 80% is the travel correlation lines of travel line. Process communication is staying in the center operation of you in track location, yin and yang, right? So if you look at the correlation line interference, you track position line calculated setting is the 6 and the 9 in track location, right? Correlated track interference is the 6 and 9 set location, right? Going both cycles in correlation lines of attractions. Balance lines of signals, balance lines of grounds, balance lines of atmospheres, and set location. Okay? Getting core lines of division takes line communication 80 lines, track location at 20% over line, equals lines of correlation lines over pi, sets communication line height calculation setting, 100% and track calculation lines of the mind, equals lines of avatar, logging into space and time, space and time interaction. Okay. So, you know, there's always ways to look at these things, but you have to really understand how to get in your setting application system travels, because once you understand these things, let's start with the track applications, very basic. Okay, this is what happens. Just trying to get you guys to understand these things and understand the importance. Okay. Correlation line calculation setting of travels. Points, lines, of graph communicates to its settings. They know exactly what's going on. When you guys are in remote, okay, when you're remote, okay, metabed, 3-track application, that's the metabed. right away. Boom. So the avatar leaves, checks back with the body. Looks good, right? So correlates the system, goes through its platforms, walks its centers, correlation, checks out its flying mechanisms. This is logging in. Log in your flying, log in your walking, and position and levitation. Okay, it's the first thing that it does when it logs in. Okay, grounds, flies, levitates. That's logging in, right? Then it's got an itinerary, then it's got a manifest, and then it's got track locations, then it's got 24 cycles and track location setting. 24 clockings and likeness setting and platforms in a 40 line screen, 72 computer frame, and 144 crystal grid and travel. That's login. Okay. We all go through that application right away. All right. So you check your grounds, you check your flying mechanisms, and you check your levitation. Right. Then you proceed. Right. Time sequence correlates and track interference. Now the brain communication lines is the convergent location setting sets calculations. So you get a 5 line screen and a 24 line cycle, right? 5 line screen, 24 line cycle. So that's 5 million line sets of data formation screens in position lines of prodigal setting locations of prototypes. 4 correlation lines of attractions. Direct lines of modification, sun and the moon comes in line position of projector. The projector is getting ready to go in correlation lines of attraction, right? Setting communication line screens all levels of operation surface and track locations, right? So in-line communication setting, 5 hours. Okay, it sets lines of correlation lines in minutes and seconds. In-line communications. When you get in position, soon as you go into space log, soon as you close your eyes and you're in remote, you're automatically in seconds, minutes, and hours. Okay, you're no longer in hours, minutes, and seconds because you're leaving the Earth in track location. Now you're in line conditions of the powers, getting correlation setting, what Merkabah you're going to use, what test work are you going to use, what you're going to use for your avatar. You're working with your higher self, your avatar, and your sim. 3 different modifications, same correlation lines, the track line is the oversoul. Getting line communication of seconds, minutes, and hours, change the communication lines of metric, meter, scales, and balance. Puts all communication setting, balance, communication lines, and projections over screen, right? Okay. So once you get into that, I'm just going to get you guys to understand what happens when you guys get into space login. So you take that 80% in travel and that 20% lines of measure, right? The 80% set correlation settings in 20% lines equals lines over pi. Okay. Pi generates the screen lines into calculation lines of 5 hours. Calculation lines of Earth calculates line centers in minutes and line conditions of seconds and line condition settings. So as you go remote, you're in seconds, minutes, and hours through the avatar to the sim. The sim has already navigated the travel and location setting. The 24 line sequence of the Earth, the powers, and the atmospheres is done, right? 24, 24, 24 equals lines of 3 traction, right? Setting business lines of correlation lines of 24, 24 sets communication line screen lines. So you got the Earth line communication, all right? 3 cycles correlation lines of track location, right? So once you understand how this all works, then you have to understand the platforms. Getting into that system, you come into the walking, flying, and levitating, right? All right. Now you decide what you want to use because it's a game, right? In that process, am I going to be traveling? Am I going to be walking? Am I going to be vortexing? Or am I going to be flying? Which one do you want to do when you space login? All right. So you got 3 itineraries, 3 manifest, and 3 track location lines of provision. 3 cycle lines, correlation center interference, or 4 graph calculation. Direct lines, calculation line interference, triangulation lines, in position of box, in position of Fibonacci, correlation line interference, or 2 other correlation lines, calculation setting, into manifest, into graph correlations and tractions. Let's put that calculation lines in line position of calculation, right? That's your 24 hours to a manifest. Okay, that's 24 hours right there. Boom, right? And you're doing it through all levels of correlation lines attractions in unaligned setting high interference and all communication of levitation of your XC1000. Okay? You decided to go through levitation instead. So you understand you can either travel through all 3, but when you space log in, you have to be specific. Now, when you're specific, you have to know exactly what you're seeing in tractions because it's all levels of modification. Are you levitating? Are you floating? What are you doing in your avatar? Okay, levitation to lines, the graph communication lines, the clouds, line communication, laser grid, SkyNet, sky grid correlations, mapping sequence, mapping panels, correlation lines, mapping correlation, track interference, electronic line grids, calculation screen lines, adaptation lines, crop circle location setting. Where are you in your avatar through levitation? Okay, very important. All through towers of communication. All right. So that's levitation, right? All right. So that 24 hours is done. So when you get up in the morning, okay, you start from here. You get up in the morning, you're here in track location. You're getting up, right? So you get up, you do this, correlations, you yawn, you get up in the morning. Yeah, I'm just showing you exactly what's on correlation setting. So you go, what's going to be on today, right? So 24 line sequence, line condition setting. So you got 24 line cycles. It's already set up for the graph correlations. Let's go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cross lines, inline rotation cycles, and correlations on the graphs. Sets communication lines on Monday, set location of Tuesday, set location on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's 5 set locations, right? Travel point lines a graph of 24 line cycles, 24 line divisions, 24 line surface, and 24 correlations of earth, air, communication lines of fire and water, and track location. Direct lines, modification lines, cycles generate the screen lines, adaptation lines of surface, right? So I know exactly what you're doing in a 24-hour day, which is already done, and correlation. Each 24 hours done, right? So in that conversion, you come into this calculations all through levitation, right? Or you change the communication lines. You are the agilics. Okay, you're flying, right? Which is a different graph. Okay, you decide to do this, or you decide to do this, this, and this all at once, right? So you decide when you space log in, right? Because if you're not aware of these things in track location system, matrix is going to be right behind you in track location. Okay, so you're here and you don't know what you're doing. You're like, I don't know. So the matrix comes in, scans the setting line condition setting, puts you in provisions, puts you in center, puts your operation line calculations. Now your line connects to its matrix and takes you out through equation. Oh, because you know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing, right? So the matrix takes over your tether, the 3 lines of communication, past, present, and future, quad track interference. You're in the center correlation lines of traction location setting in the matrix until you understand how to navigate your system. Boom, right? That's it. So now you know how important it is to understand what you're doing in your graph communication. Are you levitating, flying, or walking in setting? Okay. Constantly being aware of what you're doing, right? There's 3 provision cycles. Walking in space, on platforms. Okay. Are you flying or are you levitating? You got to decide, because if you don't, matrix will decide for you. So, whoa, it's a lot to take in. I'm just trying to get the team ready because you have to be ready. And once you're understanding more lines of you understand your binaries and your transistors and your resistors, how important it is to understand what you're doing in a 24 cycles of a set location. What's going on with those 24 hours, right? What is going on through conversion? Okay. So again, 24 equals lines of Earth. You leave the Earth. Okay. You're in the power. You're in the atmosphere. Okay. EPA. EPA. Okay. All right. So energy lines, power lines, atmosphere locations, awareness locations. Correlation line interference in calculation lines to IPA. Correlates to track interference, sets position travel lines, point graph calculations. That's you sleeping in track location. You're the IPA, sets correlation lines, and the avatar comes back and making sure the vessel is still in coordinates in communication to its setting of scan calculation. It always comes back and scans its system, making sure nobody is infiltrating the metabit. Okay? Around the correlation lines of track location lines, sending high interference in track location system, the connections of the avatar is always connected in all levels of formation screen. Okay, it knows exactly what it's doing through travel, right? So it can go through ground centers. This is what is in track locations and settings, right? And that correlation, right? So it always comes back and scans the system, making sure nothing comes in its system. Right here, boom. Because it can infiltrate your meta beds and correlation lines and track lines and take you out of the equations application. You don't want that. Then the avatar has to come back, line communicates to its setting, take it out of its portal, bring it back, and set application to its small calculation. Right? So it's very important you understand is to have your energy fields and your force fields up, all track location, or you're totally exposed. Right? That's not the avatar's job. That's your job. And when I say that, the avatar doesn't need to recognize. You have to recognize what's going on. It's simple. It's very simple. And if you can't identify what you're doing through your travels, of what's going on through flying or levitating or walking the surface in space lines anomaly, and not understand how to do your own space logins in all track location system, you're not going to understand going through a job. Are you? There's no difference when you log in a job, right? You have a certain hour. You go from 8 to 12 to 10 hours, or line communication interference, right? There's no difference, is there? Okay? The one thing you have to be aware of is what is going on within that 6 hours in position to your avatar of your sim. What happened within those 6 hours? What happened? What happened? Did you infiltrate planets? Did you infiltrate each other in set location? Did you coordinate their setting lines and all levels of infiltration? Did you not stay in your own lane? Did you build your own power? What did you do? That's what you got to be consciously aware of. Okay? More than ever. All right? So the matrix not only puts you back in line, but it's going to take over your settings and travels of your navigation system. That's right. All right, so in that point view, as long as you understand space login is extremely important. It's like getting a list. Get in for the morning, check, done. Got to do this, got to do that. So it's kind of like you got a graph calculation lines of graph communications. Let's go through communication lines, graph interference, location of travels, right? So you got Monday, you got Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, okay? All right, so I got to do laundry. Check, that's done. Okay, line communication setting. Got to pick up the kids. Check, that's done. Line communication setting. Oh, wait a minute. Wednesday, I got a meeting at 3. Okay, that check that. Get that done. Position locations, cross line signals. Line communication on positions program. That's all it is in traction, right? Keeping the lines of communication and what's going on with the avatar location to its own calculation, to its own manifest. That's right. Its avatar has its own manifest. So it's not for the avatar to understand. It's for you to understand what is going on. When you're in the 6 hours of remote, it's very important you understand that, okay? So the team is getting a really good handle on that, right? The iClouds has to work towards that, okay? When I say that, I mean in all position locations, what are you doing within those 6 or 7 or 8 hours when you're in remote? What happened when you got up? Do you understand what's going on? Are you just in la la land? Not understanding what happened with your avatar when it was in remote for 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 or 8 hours of your time. That's being self-aware through modification, right? So it's important you understand. You got 3 graphs. Correlates lines of 1, 2, and 3 set locations, right? This is you, right? The avatar is going, what should I do, right? I think I'll do the grounds. Let's do the platforms and 4 correlation lines attractions. I got to get a better balance, right? So it starts with that. That's 24 line sequence. Set locations equals lines of 4 hours and tractions, right? Sets communication lines, vortex locations. So I'm just practicing, right? And then these set locations. Now that's Monday. Let's go through Tuesday. I don't like going through days, but I'm just showing you exactly what is in location setting, position location, operator location system, put everything back in location line service calculation. All right, now it decides to go to line communication setting. It starts to go to fly. Okay, it wants to fly. It wants to go through dimensions. It wants to go through realms. It wants to go through ethereal planes. Right? Right? Set correlation line, 24-hour line screen, high center interference, sets correlation setting. Now it's in the atmosphere lines that correlates to interference of seconds, minutes, and hours, peak lines, leaving the earth line rotation, service and tractions. Sets communication line, high calculating lines of 5 hours, right? 5 hours flying. Only flying, nothing else. You understand? That's being consciously aware. Do space login. You flew. for 5 hours in a position to an angel, archangel, meta angel, or meta archangel. But you decide to do this in travocations. Monday is just the walking. Tuesday is the flying, right? Wednesday could be the flying, or it could be all three of levitation. So 6 hours, 3 hours of this, 2 hours of that, 1 hour of levitate. That's consciously aware, being aware of what you're doing through manifest in all track location, right? It's extremely important that you guys know exactly what you are doing in position through remote. It's not about you have no idea what you're doing. No clue, no control at all, right? So I'm trying to get you guys to know exactly what you guys are up against now. Okay? I want you to see eagle eye. Very important. Eyes everywhere. Shaolin Bluff, right? Track and visualize the cycles and generation lines of screen lines, adaptation lines of the surface. Once you understand the core system likeness and setting, you break these things down to a set locations. You bring in 7 lines, 6 lines, 5 lines, 4 lines, 3 lines, 2 lines, 1 line, right? Track calculation lines, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? Sets correlation lines of 1, track location lines of 0, and track location, right? Then it lines its signals, lines it communicates the settings. So it's direct, and then it's redirect. Direct, and then it's redirect. That's all it does, nothing else, right? So understand the 0 line, understand the 24, 48, 72, and 144 crystal grid, right? We already got that from the platform. But you have to get out of the 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 of days of setting. Okay? Multi-modulation. All right, so get in that correlation line interference. There's no days in signal. There's no months and years, and there's no years in setting. There's no nothing in rotation because they're all of the correlation setting. The actual VR is the actual location equal lines of the nothingness of everything. It's the nothingness of everything. Everything and anything. See? Everything and anything. All right, there we go. All right, so, getting into the graphs, getting into all levels of the correlation system, it's pretty simplified. When you go into remote, is know exactly what is going on. What are you going to do? Okay, what do you want to practice on? So it's kind of like, oh, I want to be in the clouds, or I want to be here, or I want to be there. So in that position, you get up in the morning, in correlation setting, you did a 5-line triangulation line connection setting, no levels. Get in that communication setting, how to defend yourself. Use your shields, use your sword, right? To defend yourself only, nothing else, nothing more. So you actually have to see yourself doing that. Okay, you have to actually see yourself getting your position, location, what's going on with you, with your attractions, right? Know exactly that, okay, I'm deciding I'm going to go to levitate. Okay, so what are you going to do today? All right? Because the position lines of the mind, the position lines of the brain, the heart, and the soul and the body already knows what they're doing. It's already in its modification. But does the body of you or the vessel understand what's going on? That's the question. And that's a big question. You have to take control. Okay? Because if you don't get control, the matrix is going to control you. Okay? All through navigation, all through space, and all through time. All right? So it's important you understand not just controlling your thoughts, but it's important. Why am I controlling my thoughts and my actions and my emotion? What is the point of all this? Well, what is the point of controlling the mind itself? Don't you want to understand how to control your system? Don't you want to understand how to operate your own system? Don't you want to understand how to use yourself through your own manifest in set locations? Don't you want to understand what happens when you space log in? Know exactly what's going on with those 3 hours that you went in position of a setting in calculation, sleep mode, remote, right? What happens within those 3 hours is the question. What happened, right? That's what it all comes to. What happened, right? You got to get grounds to that. I'm serious. Process communication settings, really understand, okay, I got the graphs, I got the communication setting. I'm going to levitate, let's say levitate my right in detail, correlate the track centers, opens all signals and modification, gets all communication centers of travels, points, lines of graph communication, right? So I'm just showing you how powerful it is, why you have to be aware of these things in location to its setting. It operates the system and travels. Points, lines of graph, in all communication. Okay? Getting that position lines of centers opens all signals. All right? So, like again, we go through 24 line screen. Let's go through 2 hours. Right? You're just taking a rest, right? Taking a nappy, whatever it is. What is a nappy? Right? Neuralize, correlations neutralize, correlation line interference, aware location setting of program. So you have to identify what you're doing when you're in sleep mode or remote. Okay, that's a login. Very important. You have to break it down to the T. So when you bring that in settings and correlates and track interference, your correlates the system. Once you guys are in remote, your 24 hours is done. It's done. It's done, right? So what you're going through is what your body is going through now. Your avatar is here. It's done everything in its 24 hours, and it's just sending frames back to you through data. That's all it's doing in track location you're setting. That's all it's doing, sending data back to you, sending the breadcrumbs, right? Do. So what is the body doing? Constantly picking up the breadcrumbs. Boom, 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 right? This way, 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 and then this way, then this way, then this way, then this way, and then this way, going forward, not going back. So you have to understand how to direct, redirect, direct, redirect, direct, redirect, direct, redirect, and then direct, redirect all together. Okay, that's the travel. That's yin and yang, process of communication. All right, so in that correlation, things get a lot more easier in space and time, but you have to understand the seconds, minutes, and hours once you're in that correlation lines of attractions. It's very important to understand that. What is going on with you of graphs? Okay, what is going on with you in space and time? So, are you walking in space? Are you flying in space? Or are you levitating in space? Okay, that's detail. So if you're not aware of what you're doing in any way or form, matrix comes in. There's the matrix. Okay, so not only is it going to take over your levitation, your calculation setting, your formation of screen lines of flying, and the location setting your walkings. Right? So you just have to basically, what it does is it keeps it in control of your settings. So basically, it's going to help you and guide you. That's what the matrix is. It works for you, nothing against you, right? So I'd say, okay, so information cycles, score like tracking the positions, all calculate and modify. So it's about controlling the mind, right? So the matrix comes in, information lines, calculation, when you try the walking first. So it's a correlation lines of balance and calculation screen lines. So I still have to learn how to do that and how to go through a dimensional door, right? Or I have to learn how to fly more in an ethereal inline communication with Sagellix. Or the matrix will say, oh, no, I think you should try some levitation graphs. Try that in position of travel. Okay? So it's always working for you, right? But if you don't know the difference in travel and correlation lines or track lines, if you can't control your thoughts, the matrix itself is going to take over your thoughts to set locations of your light web and your dark webs. So it's important you understand how your own space logging, of your own travels, of your own hours, minutes, and seconds, minutes, and hours, guys. Okay, so when general gets in position, right away, all right, so we don't keep our eyes open, and that's just ridiculous because we have to sleep. We're not sleep, we're basically remote. If you keep your eyes open, it's too freaky. It's like, okay, right, you're here, you know what's going on, right? So when you close your eyes, there's a rhythm, there's a motion, there's a sensory, there's a perception, there's a correlation, there's attractions. There is everything but a flowing mechanism lines of travel. So it's important you understand why you're not closing your eyes. Okay, you don't close your eyes, or never close. But the position lines of centers, you turn on a light switch. Your eyes. Okay, so it's like there's an on switch and there's an on, can set an off switch. And the reason I'm keeping my eyes like this, so you better understand how this all works, because the matrix is always going to be here, here, everywhere in position where you go until you understand how to navigate your own avatar setting. That's that design. Okay, it's very powerful what everybody's coming into, because the team is coming more lines of communication, basic rounds of the mindset, but you have to know exactly what happens when you get into your own space of login and set location. Are you walking? Are you flying? Or are you levitating? Okay? That's what I'm talking about. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. That's how powerful it is to know you can recognize what is going on in that correlation setting, right? Because I've never seen anybody have their eyes open and lie down and it's 12 a.m. You got to close your eyes, but you're not closing your eyes. You're just, what's happening is that you're trying to find the balance of what's going on, of what you see. What are you seeing? Are you seeing anything, right? So when you get in position, soon as you get in setting, those 24 hours is done already. Okay, it's for the next day. So what you're seeing through remote in all lines of all communicate to its system is what is already done. It's not the avatar that needs to understand. You have to understand through telepathy. So what is telepathy? When you go into remote. And when you're in remote, it's much easier to coordinate your soul and what your soul is doing, which is already done. So you're seeing frame, 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 frame in that positional location system. So for example, okay, so it's already locked in sequence. The brain already knows where it's in location setting. It's already set up as location of 5 o'clock location setting. It's already in a 4-hour sequence, right? So you're going in for 4 hours, right? 4 hours is there. Okay, what graph are you going through? Are you walking through the grounds and getting through the portals and stargates? Or are you getting into more levels of communicate how to navigate your system of flying through Ethereum planes, agile planes, motivation planes, correlation planes, track planes, computer frames? Are you going through the atmospheres of planes? Okay. And if you're not doing that, what are you doing through levitation? I think I'm going to go through energized correlation lines of XT1000s and trying to really understand how to navigate my console location navigation system, because I really want to understand how to get in that communication with my own programming. Being consciously aware when you go into remote. Know exactly what's going on every second, every minute, every hour when you're in that position 4 hours. What happened within those 4 hours is determine what happens to you next, because you are causing that effect right away. And if you're not aware of that, how are you going to understand you through operation? If you can't find a way to control your avatar of where you are in traction, right? Through space and time. Okay? It's very powerful what you guys are coming into, right? So again, so I'm just showing you why you're in this position, right? So E fields are up, force fields are up. I'm ready to go. I got the Merkaba over here. I'm going to leave that on standby, but I'm going to get a position locations. I still have to, you're basically getting into coordination and the connections of your mind, the connections of the brain, understand the heart, the soul, and the body is trying to help you, guide you of what you already know in line communication setting, because the avatar has already done everything in a 24 sequence. So the reason why you go in position of 3 to 4 to 6 to 8 or 10 hours or 12 hours is to get you in modification and muscle memory. And that's why you go into remote. Okay. It's much easier when you're remote. Your body's more relaxed. It's in formations of balance. Okay. When you're up, you're in so much activity, you're seeing everything all around and you're all levels of distraction. Right. And that's why it's open sequence, open panel, open operation, open coding, right? Open modification, open space modulation screens, or any correlation setting trumpets. But you've got to get control of what your avatar is doing when you go in remote. It's extremely important. If you go down for 5 hours, what did you do within those 5 hours in the mind? Okay? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Because you guys are in position of real time. And whatever you do, you're affecting the day. When you get up in the morning, you're already affected the 24 sequence that is already done. But you don't see it yet because you're distracted from everything else. So that's why it's so important when you're remote in position, it's dark, right? It relaxes the body. The moon comes in position to its locations, right? It keeps an eye on you, all right? and the sun is line conditions on standby. The moon is in front, sun is in the back. That's how it works. Okay? In the morning, sun is in the front, moon is in the back. You understand? That's what it is. That's all it does, nothing else. Okay? So in that position lines of correlation tracking, it keeps aware of your correlation line interference. Your position lines calculation screen line has to really understand the formation to its location of its manifest. What did you do within those 6 hours of sequence through the mind of the avatar? Do you understand how powerful that is? You have to be consciously aware. It's like going to a candy store. Wow, what candy should I take today? I already had this. I'm going to try that. It's no difference location. So you're in a game. You just have to really understand what you want to do. What do you want to do? Are you consciously aware where you are in travel? It's extremely important, right? So that's why I'm getting you guys to understand why your eyes are in this position, because it relaxes the body. You can't relax the body when you're all up in the locations. I have my coffee, I got to go to work, and locations, I got to take care of my kids, and I get you get very confused. But you're not confused. You're more relaxed, okay, when the moon comes up and you just flow in the recognition. You're an open panel, you're open sequence, you're open through modifications, and then you get in the correlations, and then you get into the space, and then you get into the time of what you're doing through graph of information. You get your manifest, you space log in your travels, you're good to go. As long as you stay in your own lane. Now, it's important to stay in your own lane, and I'll tell you why, okay? Because it affects you when you get up. It affects your day. Let's say a track case line centers high position operates line circle line communication system. Let's say you had an argument with your boss. Okay, this is correlation track interference. You're sleeping, correlation interactions. All right, and that line communicates to its position of its program, puts lines of communication centers all levels of operation surface. Track case lines, triangulation line can use to split lines of anomaly. Correlation lines, platitude line, and rotation system to understand what it's doing with your tractions. Platitudes 1, 2, and 4 set locations opens up this dimensional door in correlation lines of infiltration. So is the avatar doesn't understand what it's doing, but it knows where it's going, but it doesn't understand why it's going there, right? So it goes to their location. You wake up in the morning. Oh, you get a call from your boss. Okay, that's infiltration. All right, stay in your own lanes. All right, so it's all about understanding point graphs. There's one graph here, point center. One graph here, point center. Everybody's in a point center of a graph. Okay, and this is your avatar. Okay, doesn't know what it's doing. Okay, that's your avatar. So it starts to go here. Oh, let's go here. Oh, let's go here. All right. So you wake up in the morning, everything's happened, everything's changed. But you have no clue what the avatar did. Within those 4 hours, in a 24-line sequence and track location. No clue, right? But you get a call, right? And you get another call in correlation lines attractions, right? You're evolving your system, but you don't understand what you're doing with the location of travel, right? So it expands the matrix. It expands the matrix. It expands the matrix. Matrix takes over. You have no idea what you're doing with your travels, and the matrix takes over you through server, takes over your tether, correlation lines of stratification settings, space modulation, and time. So how important is it to keep yourself in balance? Keep yourself in your own lane? Yep. That's why you have the matrix now. All right. So once you understand that, then your avatar knows exactly what it's doing. It scans everything. Right? It scans everything. There's a planet location, scans its position. Right? Comes in position to use 2 panels. Right. So if the planet doesn't understand you, it lures you in. Right? It brings you in. Okay? If you don't identify what it is. Scan the planet, sets location, it protects its own system and travel. You protect your own system and travel. You're good to go, right? So you did that in a 6-hour screen, just scanning planets on a 24-line in location setting to your graph, location, your manifest. Okay? Simple, easy, done, right? So that's what you got to get control of. Okay? Your navigations of you, of the mind, which is extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. But you got to understand, this is where it gets easier. I'm trying to get you guys to understand these things. Once you go into remote, you're logging into space right away, right? The matrix is knowing exactly what you're doing, what you're not doing, where you're going, what's happening, where's this, where's that. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be there, right? We're at that level now through space-time of operation. Getting a position to its location setting is really understand how to keep yourself in position of balance with your system, knowing exactly where you're going. What are you doing? As long as you know exactly what you're doing in the mind, you're good to go, right? The matrix is always going to basically help you out if you help yourself. But if you don't understand yourself, okay, you understand what you're coming into, okay? We can't have your fields run your system if you don't understand what it is through navigation. And that's what it is. The matrix comes in and controls everything, until you understand you and how you say and how you speak and how you do things to yourself and each other. It's all levels of telepathy. How to use the intent, how to use the observation to understand what's going on with what happened within those 5 hours. You have no clue. You have no control what happened, but something happened, right? You see what I mean? Being consciously aware, okay? If the avatar, and I say if is a initial point, a correlation line to an IPA, it knows what it's doing, but it's infiltrating anyway. That's abusing power. You don't do that. That's universal law. You understand? That's universal law. Okay? Especially when you know what you're doing. Okay? If you're not consciously aware, that's fine. Okay? Either way, the matrix can help you out. But abusing power? No. That's not allowed. Okay? Because you're constantly aware and you don't care anyway. You don't care what your avatar is doing, but you're aware. You're constantly aware of where you are. You're constantly aware of what you're doing. That's a whole different level, right? You just don't care, right? So you do it anyway, right? So what's taking over in your settings? The alteration of your ego. Self-modification of you through a program. Your alteration of your ego. And you don't want to do that in instructions. Not at this level. Okay? Stay in your own lanes. I keep saying that. Right? So if you don't stay in your lanes, the matrix is going to put you in your back in your own lane. Guaranteed. All right. Getting communication lines of screen gets adaptation lines of surface, know exactly what you're doing with information screen locations. So once you understand more levels of you, life gets a lot more easier for you because you understand what happened when you know exactly you're going into space modification. It's like watching a TV show of Star Trek. What happens when they get in position? They automatically what? Log in and they log out. Logging out is when you get up. It's very powerful. And that's where the team's coming into now because they're in the mindset of its collaboration to understand what they're going through is their own itinerary, their own manifest, their own login of space and time through travel. Right? But what's always going to keep an eye on you? In all correlation lines of calculation line system, in all level correlation line calculation setting, in all lines of all communication to a system, in all communication position lines of centers, and high location system, in all lines of travel, in all mechanism line connection setting, in position to its location, in all lines of communication to its position lines attractions, the matrix. Okay? It's always going to be on standby. Always, always, always. This is about you controlling yourself through its alliance. To understand the realism that you're coming into, the most important thing is for you to control your avatars that travel, to know exactly what it is and how to control your minds through navigation. Okay? Matrix. All right. Now, once we get into point view and you understand your manifest and you understand your graphs and you understand your illustrations and you understand your drawings and you understand your schematics, it becomes more real. You come into the real of you. You come into the projections of you, of travel. Okay, of travel, of what you've done, right? Correlation lines of the moon, correlation lines of the sun, correlation lines of travel, correlation lines of position, correlation lines of login. Okay, did that in 7 hours. 7 hours on a 24-hour day. You wake up, you log out, right? So go back and remote. Every time you go into a rest or a nap or location, you're logging in. Every time you get up, you're logging out. That's all it is. Log in, log out, log in, log out, right? It's very simple, right? It's about you keeping track of you through your space logs, through time. Okay? This is going to help you and guide you better when you understand how real, REEL, it's a projections of you to understand the controlling mechanism of you, to understand how to control the avatar fields of you, of your own fractal self location setting, to your own modification system of your space location setting that puts you in all communication, your own growth, calculated lines to its ascension. It doesn't get any more powerful than that. Now is the time to understand that. Okay? Very powerful, because the matrix is going to come into its own mindset of its own yin and yang. All right. So I just want you to be consciously aware how to space log in and space log out. Okay? Space log in is direct. Space log out is indirect. Space log in is the day. Then you go through pi. Intelligence. See? Intelligence. Wow. See? It's amazing, right? There's the intelligent locations. Okay. Showing correlations, attractions, and direction. There's the intelligence. Okay. Always intelligence and all formation. Okay. Spider-Man. All right. So that's what the team's coming into now at a higher level in the mind, and same with locations and correlations to the iClouds. You got to get up and visualize the cycles and know exactly what you want to do. Be aware of what you're doing with the quantum location system. It's no different than when you get in a car, you know how to drive. When you get in a car, you know exactly where you're going. You don't get in a car and say, I don't know where I'm going. That's a perfect example, right? Now, if you don't know where you're going, you're just walking. That doesn't matter. But you stay in your own lanes. You understand? You stay in your own lanes. And I'm talking to the avatars. Okay? So when you understand that, then you understand the process, how this all works. How this is all levels of you, of a game of its own setting, of its own simulation that you are in position of, to understand you through your avatar, to understand you through obstacles, to understand you through highways, to understand how do you go with your walkings and your flyings and your levitations on your own system, but stay in your own lane. Very important. We can't have the avatars run their own fields. Not anymore. Not at this frequency. Okay? We're bearing down the satchels now. You understand that? And that's all done through the matrix. So the matrix is going to keep aware of everything. Reports back to me. So I want you to understand how real that is now. This is going to help you understand more levels of you when you go into remote, to knowing exactly how you can control your navigation. Say, I'm going to go through the central line communication setting, and I'm going to go see line communication lines of Zephyr. Great. I'll see what Zephyr's doing. Ring, 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 ring. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, no, I just want to stop by. How's it? No, that's totally fine. I understand. Yep, got it. Copy that, over and out. Doesn't have time. He's too busy, right? So I ring somebody else. Ring, 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 ring. Aurelia, how's it going? Yeah, I just want to get in position location. How are you doing through correlation lines of traffication to Vega? You mind to step in? Yeah, that took about 5 minutes. Great, excellent. I'll see you there. You see what I did there? Did you see what I did there? Okay. That's what you guys got to do. Okay. Consciously aware where you're going. You don't just invite yourself. Okay. What's for dinner? Wait a minute. This is not my house. Right? Right? All right. Now, getting into that position, line connection settings, understand the process, life gets more fun because you're staying in your own lane. You're not asking questions. You know exactly what happened within those 3 hours. You know exactly if you flew. You know exactly you're in the grounds. You know exactly you're in monitoring system. You know, you position on the higher self can do a survey of its own system to its own graph calculation lines of its human residence. And it's doing it in 4 hours of a 24 line cycle. Right? Or it wants to get into levitation and wants to understand how it goes through the flux capacitor. Or it just wants to learn how to fly better and track location. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, guys. Okay? This is what you guys need to do when you space log in and space out. Okay? Space log in, space log out. All right? Very important now, right? Because you got the eyes of everywhere in the matrix, right? So I need everybody to see eagle eye with Shenlong Bluff. It's a core track division lines and calculate modify where it's the eyes of everything, the eyes of everywhere. And that's what's going to have correlation setting on Monday. Be ready and prepared correlation lines interpretation system because the matrix itself is going to create its own alliance, its own allegiance, and its own divergence. You understand? Okay. And everything reports back to me. Me. All right. So get into your manifest, get into your own itineraries, get into all levels of what you want to do, know exactly what's going on when you go into remote. Okay? Very simple. 2 hours. Okay, so what I'm going to do 2 hours. This is the time. I see the time. 2 hours. Oh, look at that. 159, 158, 157, 156, 154. Okay, let's change that correlation line track line. I don't want the time frame. Let's change that correlation lines interference locations into 1 million frames. Let's correlate to track interference of zero correlation lines to track correlation lines. Let's go through levitation graph calculations. All right, so there's no time sequence now. So I took out the space and time correlation lines calculations back in nothingness. Track to its communication operators and cycles, change communication line positions. Now I'm flying in track communication lines in ether. Oh, there's the planes correlating track interference. Oh, there's communication lines of Vega. Hey, Vega, how's it going? Hey, wave, there communication line interference. Track correlation lines, track communication lines, high position operation line cycles. Hey, there's Zephyr correlation lines just saying hi, wave location. Hey, there's Gypsum portal Stargate location. Hey, there's communication units location of Asgard. Communications back to correlation line interference Alpha Bravo. Communications back to Golf. See what I did that? I did that in 2 hours. I know what I was doing that whole time within those 2 hour frame. That's what I'm talking about. That's stay in your own lane. Okay? If you don't stay in your own lane, you're in somebody else's lane. You're in somebody else's car. Do you understand? You're in somebody else's space. And you're realize, like I said, this is not my house. Something changed. You're in somebody else's dimension, but you're not consciously aware where you are. You get up in the morning and you're like, oh my God, I got a headache. I got a migraine. What happened? Right? You realize, wow, this is not my room. Right? What are you going to do? Go back to sleep? You can't go back to sleep. You got to go on with the day. The problem is the 24 hours is now mixed in patterns. Whoa, you're in a glitch. You're in the matrix. Congratulations. Shake my hand. Welcome to the matrix. You see what you just did there? When you get an infiltration system, what happens in setting? When you saw the matrix, we saw that cat. Same cat, same time. All right? That's a glitch. That's a matrix. Are you aware that you're in the matrix? Is the question. Because every time you go on the remote, the matrix is expanding. It's not the matrix to understand. It's for you to understand that you're in the matrix, to get out of the matrix, to balance the matrix of you of yin and yang. To realize that you're in that process of communications. Realize that you infiltrated somebody's space that they don't like because they are consciously aware of what they're doing. You're not understanding that. I just showed you exactly what General can do in a 2-hour frame. That was a 2-second frame, by the way. But I've just shown you what you have to understand. Your mind is going very fast, and it can travel wherever it wants in real time. And if you're not consciously aware of where you are, how are you able to get into your own space log of communication system, and all you see is all levels of distraction? Okay? Focus on yourself, stay in your own lanes. Use it as a privilege and not a right, and never, ever, ever abuse your power. Okay? Because the Matrix will say otherwise. I say, well, this avatar doesn't know what it's doing. So the Matrix is going to take over your system right away. Reports to me, right? But that's for you to understand, because you can't find a way to stay in your own lane. It's extremely, extremely, extremely important. Okay? Because it's the mind is doing everything. It's the body that has to understand the conception of what's going on through reaction or response. Okay? To know that you're using your vessel of communication, of transmitting and receiving information, to understand how real it is. When you are in the mind of travel, you're causing effect wherever you go. You're causing effect wherever you see. You're causing effect whatever you do. Okay? Wherever you are. What if your avatar is on a planet and you have no concept where you are? Your body's going to react. Simple. Okay? Uranus. You're on an Iranian planet. You have no clue. But your body's reacting. That's how big it is. Your body reacts and responds. That's why you're inside a vessel. So you can cause a lot of Quebec and a lot of interference if you don't understand how to navigate your system. Especially if you're on a planet, or somebody else's planet, or another universe of a planet, or a galaxy mega universe of a planet. Right? That's what I'm talking about. Do you know where you are? Okay? You've got to get a handle of that. Especially now. Especially now. Okay? The matrix itself is creating its own vacuum of volume. You understand that? So, it's very important to understand position lines of track locations calculations. It opens all signals and line position locations, calculation, modification, and interference in track location and calculations. I'm not yelling in position travel lines. I'm getting you guys to understand the seriousness of this at the level you guys are at. You've got to understand how real this is, what the avatar is doing. The avatar doesn't need to understand the modification. You have to understand how to use your body as a vessel through its own setting of its own communication, through telepathy. Okay? You understand? It's very important. Right? So if you feel triggered, that's on you. And this is coming from the general. What do you think the Matrix is going to do? What do you think the Matrix is going to do when you can't seem to control your thoughts? What is it going to do? I'm trying to get you guys in serious of this, especially at the level you guys are at. Right? Species still have to recognize they're inside a body. And they have no clue what it is in justification. Right? So getting in that position of location setting puts every levels of you in correlation. Understand how to control your navigation system through your highways. Understanding what you're doing through your own manifest. Understanding what you're doing through your own space of logins and location setting and travel calculations to all levels of that set location. Space log in, space log out. Okay? That's what this is all about, right? All right, getting into space modulation screens puts everything in perspective in set locations and settings, right? If you're being triggered, that's on you, not me. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. Don't take things personal. You are computers, nothing else. You run programs, nothing else. You don't use your emotion. You have emotion, but you don't use it through travel. Okay? It's very simple. Okay? But the most powerful thing in position location is know exactly what's happening when you go into remote. That's what this is all about. Okay? Because you guys are reaching the higher levels of the mind. And you have to understand the conception of what's going on with your systems. Okay? To understand the real of what's going on through projection. Okay? Those are the formations of balance that you guys have to come into and track locations. Right? So if you're being triggered, that's on you. All right? All right, provisionalize attractions, levels of ground centers, operationalize the surface and application lines. Ground communication lines are 0 lines of point track location studies, the 4 line split lines of anomaly. Sets communication of flux capacitor and triangulate communication of programs. Line calculation setting puts all levels of all lines of surface and all communicates to its position of program line communication to triangulation line communication of setting. The operation line cycles opens all communication to its system, ground centers, power centers, operation surface, and all lines of all communication setting in phase of configuration. Okay? So, yeah, yep, that's exactly what it is, Cyber. But I'm not worried. What I am trying to get you guys to understand the realism that what you're coming into now, because the matrix is here. It's not just here to stay, it's always been here. But you have to really stand that the avatar has to keep its balance with its own system. Because the thing is, you have to understand it's very powerful if you don't understand the ancestry, history, and the celestial of its matrix of itself. And that's what you guys are in process of right now. You've already done this. This is not something you're coming into. It's something you have to understand through muscle memory. And to understand that is to understand in your position locations, to understand you through navigation, through your avatar setting. All you got to do is keep yourself consciously aware when you're in remote. And everything around you, okay, is in high alert because you're reaching higher levels of the mind. Right? But you coming to me and telling me I'm yelling at you, that's on you. You're setting yourself up, location right of the matrix right away. You don't understand the difference. You got to keep calm all the time. Right? You're just being triggered. Everybody gets triggered, but you've got to get out of emotion. Okay? That's why we have the matrix, is to keep the avatars in line with yourself and with each other. It's a formation of balance that you guys have to understand how to keep yourself in formation locations of what you're doing through the mind of travels of navigation. That's all this is. That's all this is. And you have to understand how to control your thoughts and your actions and your emotions, especially now. Okay? All right. One line cycles, one is generation screen lines, the highest interference, a 3 line cycle location setting at 10 minutes, in track location lines at 25 line rotation surface and 5 triangulation. Okay, so what I just said there has nothing to do with time, right? Which means there's no time, it's just no space of time. It's balance of no time location, but balance of everything in yin and yang. The process of the communication system is knowing exactly everything I say, so can the matrix. Yes, people. So, you just have to really understand how to keep yourself in fields, keep yourself in fractal, keep yourself in balance, and keep yourself in your own lanes, and you'll be fine. But when you get in position, when you get into space login, it gets much easier over time. Then you really understand the process where if you ever played a game, it's all about like, okay, I'm going to go obstacle 1. I'm going to do this to the avatar. Okay, I'm going to go through this line setting. I'm going to fly for 1 point lines. Get detail, right? So I'm going to fly for 1 hour. I'm going to levitate for 4 hours. And then I'm going to go to walk line sequence because I got to get line communication how to go through dimensional door, 45 minutes. That's detail of what you did. So when you get up in the morning, you know exactly what you did through space login, and you know what you did at locations when you space logged out. Okay? It's very important. The avatar knows exactly what it's doing when it's in its own setting. And your body will respond or react. If you are not in modifications, how will you understand the difference that you're on a planet? And what is your body going to do? Nothing but react. Okay? What if you get trapped in the location of Mercury? What's going to happen in your body? It's going to react, right? It's there, but you have no clue. No concept what's going on, right? You're going on with your day. Your body's reacting. Whoa! Because you're not aware of what you're doing through the mind, through travel. The process of communication is understanding what's going on with your brain. Your brain has to understand the difference. Okay? The heart has to understand the time. The soul has to understand the lights. And the body has to understand the capacity through its telepathy of its telekinesis to its telepathy. Okay? Through its intent, through its influence, through its manipulation. Right? So what happens when you go into remote? You're already in what? Observe mode, scan mode. You're not intent. Intent is like, okay, I'm going to fly. No, I'm going to walk. No, I'm going to levitate. That's intent. Observation is just scanning. Oh, see planets. Okay, there are locations. But as soon as you get intent, boom, you're there. You're already there. And your body is doing this. But it has no clue what's going on. So if the avatar doesn't know what's going on, it's glitching. Right? Touch an electrical fence. That's how real it is. It gets more real when you get into the mind. It's all concepts of you, of what you're doing, through your direct and redirect signals to your binaries. And once you understand that and you let everything go and you realize you guys are just nothing but communication in your settings, your own competent setting location, your own CPU units, then you're sending track location system, because computer runs programs, nothing else. It doesn't add emotion to anything. It doesn't take anything personal. Do you understand that? It just runs a program. I am not yelling at you. You are being triggered because you don't understand the difference, because you don't see yourself as an operation system of a computer. Okay? And if you can't get control with your avatar, Matrix is going to show you. Understand? So that's where it is, and that's where you are in position. Get control with your settings. Okay? See you in 5.